Okay, we're going to try to get started here.
But I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. The problem is that
Good morning. I'm calling the meeting to order. We have 3 bills on our agenda. I want to welcome all the members from the public and for our committee as well. We're in recess today to have our committee meetings. So I've been to a meeting already this morning. I'm sure some of y'all have as well. Please remember to turn off your cell phones and pagers. And Representative Royal will do our invocation. Hold on. What number are you? Okay.
Let us pray. Our Father, we thank you for the many blessings of life. We especially thank you for this group of individuals who are dedicated in doing the work for the people of the state of Georgia. We ask you to be with us, guide us, give us your wisdom. Let us know what the right thing to do is and give us the courage to do that. In Jesus Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Representative Royal. The next order of business, and first of all, let me just do a couple of housekeeping things for us. For our members, please remember to push your button to speak, and also when you are talking, lean into the microphone so it can be picked up. At this level, which is a full committee meeting level, only committee members ask questions. The time for our public input was at the subcommittee level, and I certainly appreciate all the efforts people have made at that level. Tom McCall, do you have an Environmental Quality Subcommittee report? Is Tom here? Where's Tom? Yeah. All right. Good morning.
Morning, Madam Chairman. Yes, ma'am, I have an Environmental Quality Subcommittee report. But before that, as a lot of you know, there was some confusion the other day in a subcommittee meeting, and I just want to make sure one more time that it was simply a misunderstanding, a mistake on my part, had nothing to do with the chair or anybody else, but we had a do-over the next couple of days, and as far as I'm concerned, everything's fine and it's over with. There was no, I repeat, absolutely no intentions of anybody for any kind of under-the-table end run, around the corner, whatever you want to call it, mess-ups. So with that, it's over with. If you got in a conversation, I said the other day, come see me. Nobody came, so don't come see me anymore if you're worried about it. Or the chairman. Senate Bill 191 and 510 were what we were talking about. The last committee meeting we had, whenever that was, yesterday, and both of them came out with a due pass, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative McCall. And then Representative Manning, if you will do your Resource Management Subcommittee report.
Yes, Madam Chair. The Resource Management Committee has had under consideration Senate Bill 578 and has passed it out of the subcommittee with a due pass recommendation.
Thank you, Representative Manning. The first bill we'll take up today is Senate Bill 191, and Chair of the Senate Natural Resources is here today, Chairman Tollison. Thank you. We appreciate your being here, and just want to explain before you start talking that a lot has happened to this bill since it was first sent over to the House, and Chairman Tollison, if you'll just begin. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, committee, for hearing this. This document number is LC 254538S. It's a substitute, and I think that's the one you probably have before you. A lot has gone into this, and I want to say that the governor lifted the moratorium on Southwest Georgia on Friday, and I know y'all are all aware of that. Chair Lady Smith, Dr. Couch with EPD, Representative Royal, Representative Hanner, Senator Bullock, and the Flint River Basin Stakeholders Group has worked all weekend on this to get this as language on the permitting process that also helps to go along with the lifting of the moratorium. So this is the people that this really affects have been at the table all weekend and through yesterday to make sure that everyone's rights were protected in the water process. And I want to just say that the people of Southwest Georgia have done a yeoman's job of being involved in this and creating good policy here. 191, the beginning of it, basically Section 1 just pretty much shows you that the director makes all orders and grants and denies, revokes, or amends any variances and all that. That's stuff you all really already understand there. As you come over to page 2, this is giving the director more flexibility for the permitting process. If they're behind in permitting, the director of EPD may identify professionals that basically permit applicants can retain and pay to help through that permitting process, but the applicant themselves has to pay for it, not the state of Georgia. And this is only identified professionals that the director of EPD identifies as qualified to do this process. So that's what Section 1 deals with. Section 2, and I know y'all have heard a lot about this and read a lot already, but this is relating to the permits of surface water permitting, and you'll see the changes, the new language in this code section on page 3, line 14 through line 23, and this is just saying that applications under this paragraph submitted on or after the effective date of the paragraph farm use with a Flint River Basin shall be assessed non-refundable application fee in the amount of $250 per application, and this came out of the stakeholders group and has been agreed to. Also, it shows that there's a term on the permit of 25 years, and this has come as a culmination of looking at the business model of farming and having to have their banking finances in place. You couldn't have a short-term agreement out there with long-term financing. So this is kind of where that 25 years has come into be. And so that kind of puts that 25-year limit. But then at the end of that 25 years, your permit will be reissued unless the division sees some unreasonable adverse effects upon the water uses, and then the division may renew the original permit at a lower capacity, but in that such capacity shall be based on the reasonable use of the permittee. So the rights of the permittee are always in play here, and this is just looking at the future of the issues we may have to deal with. Section 3, this is where the director may permanently revoke any permit under this code section for farm use within the Flint River Basin applied for on or after the effective date of this paragraph if initial use for the purpose indicated on the permit application as measured by a flow meter approved by the State Water and Sewer Conservation Commission has not commenced within 2 years. So, in other words, if you've gotten the permit and 2 years have gone by and you've not use this, then you would have to basically demonstrate that your non-use was due to financial hardship or circumstances beyond his or her control. And that's just kind of a check and balance there. Section 4 is the same. It's dealing with groundwater versus surface water. Excuse me. You'll look on page 4, section 4, lines 27 through 29, that's the non-refundable $250 application fee. And then if you go to page 5, that again addresses from the groundwater side the 25-year limit on the permit, and then goes through the same process to make sure it can be renewed, and unless things have changed, it may have to be a lower capacity, but takes the permittee's evaluation of what they really need to use as a number one factor there. And then lines 20 to 26 is also dealing with that 2 years. If you've gotten the permit and haven't gotten it up and running and using the water, then that 2-year limit comes into play again. And that 2 years, that gives time for somebody to get the permit, order equipment to be put in place, and sometimes you don't just get equipment the next day. There could be issues there, so that gives plenty of time to make sure that you get your equipment up and running and start to use it. And that, Madam Chair, basically is the changes and the new language that has been agreed upon by so many people that are affected by this process.
Thank you, Chairman Tollison. I don't see any questions. Yes, now I have one. Representative Hanner.
Just to clarify something, Senator, and we appreciate you working with us on this piece of legislation. Just to clarify, after 25 years, shall be renewed at the original permit capacity.
Right.
When you talk about shall be renewed, that's not a $250 application fee.
No,
Okay. Just
that's
point of
correct.
clarification.
If the director's here, I don't know if she's here or not.
I just
Am
don't
I
think
correct
that ever
on
came
that?
up.
I felt like I was, but I want to make sure and clarify it as we're here. But
I just don't
that's
think it ever
correct.
came up. That's the reason I
Thank you.
clarified.
That's a good question.
Thank you, Representative Hanner. I see a question from Representative Garner. Let's see if I hit the right switch.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and I appreciate all the work that's been done on this bill since I read it a while ago. I have two questions. On page 2, the new sections, it looks like there are 3 professionals. One, the director may identify but does not have to identify professionals qualified to review. Is that
That's
correct? And then the permit applicant may also retain a qualified professional.
That has been identified by the director.
Oh, it's one of those that have been identified by the director.
Right.
Okay. And then the third one, the qualified professional, who pays for that person?
The applicant.
The applicant
If
pays
they
for
go
all
outside the system and use one that the EPD director has said you can use this person, but you got to go pay it.
Okay, so,
Not the state of Georgia.
okay, that makes sense to me. The other question had to do with the, let's see, on the top of page 4, the revoking of the permit, if they haven't used it for 2 years, unless the permittee can reasonably demonstrate that his or her non-use was due to financial hardship, that
Correct.
makes sense, or circumstances beyond his or her control. That sounds like a pretty broad
It is, but
exception.
it gives the director leeway to say, let's just say you got your permit and be honest with you, you found out you had cancer and you're going through chemo, and I'm just picking that out of the sky. I think that's a very valid reason to extend your time to get up and running.
So lack of water would not be, that would also be beyond their control.
Right.
If there was less water available and
I think the intent is, to be honest with you, if something occurs that's reasonable in someone's life, then the director would.
I can see the intent, and I'm glad there's an appeal or an exception. I just wondered whether that was broader than Representative Royal has agreed to tell me what it really means. And I appreciate that, since I'm not an expert in the field and you are. Please tell us all.
Wait a minute, please. That's not the proper order to follow. Actually, Representative Royal can pose a question to Chairman Tollison if he wishes. Representative Royal, it might help all of us if you pose a question to Chairman Tollison.
Tollison, isn't there another factor in this, in that there are 1,100 backlogs of permits standing out there, and there's some concern about the ability of a farmer to get a well drilled and the equipment manufacturer to have the equipment on hand to supply all of these 1,100 permits.
And that is true, Representative Royal, and thank you, because to be honest with you, that just didn't ding on me. But that is one of the other factors. But the other factors are also in there, too.
But it couldn't be because of the weather.
Please pose your questions to me.
Madam Chairman?
Just a second, please. Let me disconnect Representative Royal, and then connect Representative Garner back. Okay, Representative Garner.
I was just seeing weather or lack of rainfall as a circumstance beyond his or her control, and I understand that's not your intention. I was just wondering if that needed to be clarified. But
I am sure that the director of EPD would take those things into account, and
Yeah.
that's given her the flexibility, or that person at the time, or whatever.
Thank you, Chairman Tolleson. I see no more questions. The chair would be interested in a consideration of a motion from someone. Representative Royal.
I would like to move that the committee, full committee, recommend a do pass recommendation on the committee substitute to Senate Bill 191, LC 254538S.
Thank you. A couple of seconds there. Any questions? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? I want to thank Chairman Tolleson and all the members from the Flint River area and the legislators and the EPD and the governor's office. This was really put together once we realized the moratorium would be lifted, and there was a desire to avoid speculation also, which could hurt the farmers whose living is determined by their ability to get permits. So this is an example of our legislature, both chambers, pulling together to address a very serious problem. And thank you, Chairman Tolleson,
Thank you, Madam
for your
Chair.
leadership.
I would just like to say once again, I want to thank the legislators from that area working with everyone and dealing with an issue that's so important to all the people of Southwest Georgia. Thank you. Thank you, committee.
Thank you. Our next order of business will be to take up Senate Bill 578. Chairman Rice is presenting that.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman and the members of the committee. This bill is LC 380097. This is a bill by Senator Whitehead and others. It's a very simple bill. Basically, it's a smaller government bill. And basically, the issue is that trucks that haul waste or grease are regulated by DNR in EPD, and the same truck can carry a septic waste, and that's regulated by DHR, the Public Health Section. Now, the trucks that haul both types of waste to the disposal site must be insured, must be inspected to ensure that they don't leak. And that charge is approximately $150 per inspection. Although the waste can be carried together, that can't be carried together, many times one truck carries both types of waste. So what happened a couple of years ago, through some other law changes that were made, the unintended consequence of this was that the same truck can be inspected 2 different times by 2 different agencies, both of them charging an average of $150 for the inspection. Also, if the truck goes to a different county, the county has the opportunity to re-inspect that truck, and these carriers are paying up to $600 in many cases for an inspection that really only was destined to take place one time to ensure that there was no leakage. All that this bill does is provide that a hauler of commercial waste and septic tank waste is inspected one time either by DNR or DHR, the local health department, and that other agency will accept the inspection, and that one inspection is good throughout the state, so you can move county to county. And that's basically all the bill does. It's a bill to reduce the overhead of regulation and a smaller government, and at the same time to preserve the efficacy of the inspection requirement.
Thank you, Chairman Rice. And I see a question from Representative Buckner.
Hi. I just have a question. Living near a regional landfill where some of this is being brought, it starts out possibly in one condition and on a hot summer day ends up in a different condition as it travels 2 or 3 hours. So you're saying that if there's a problem, I'm asking if there is a problem en route, if they're inspected at the beginning of their trip and there's some kind of issue with leakage or some type problem, would they be able to stop them and inspect them at that point?
The current law, if I'm not correct, calls for one inspection during the course of the year.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a couple more questions. I have number one, Chairman Hurd.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Chairman Motor Vehicle, I question that this inspection, does that have any implication into the emissions inspections that are currently carried? Because it talks about inspection, I don't see where the bill outlines as to what they're inspecting for. Would it conflict any with the emissions inspection required by the state?
I don't see anything in the bill, nor has the sponsor of the bill in the Senate indicated that there was anything to do with emission inspections. They still have to go through the same emission inspections, and I believe that the people who do emission inspections are different people than do leakage inspections of the tank.
The normal process that we do is we let each representative on our committee have the opportunity to ask one question. I wasn't strict with that in the beginning. I don't see too many questions on this bill, but we'll need to follow that policy from this point forward. Chairman Hurd, you indicated you had one more brief question.
Yes, ma'am. Just I'm just questioning the definition of inspection in this bill as to limiting it to the leakage and not carrying over into the emissions.
And where are you looking specifically?
Well, I'm asking where is the definition of what the inspection is for?
Yeah, I am informed by someone who aptly should know that it's in a different code section.
Thank you.
Which is a lot of the case, even in motor vehicles law, it's the same idea.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman Hurd. And our legislative counsel just pointed out to me, if you will look on line 20, page 1 of your bill, for purpose of, it's line 20 and 21, for purpose of compliance with requirements of this subsection. So we're dealing strictly with this subsection, if that answers your question. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Then I also see
Thank
a
you,
question.
Legislative
I also see a question from Chairman Martin.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Gentlemen, just to be clear, when you're talking about inspections, you're talking about the annual inspection of the truck. This bill in no way would prohibit local law enforcement if they saw a leakage en route from stopping the car.
No.
I just wanted to make clear that's what I believe we were reading here.
Right.
I believe Representative Buckner's question was.
No, I think it's a good question.
Still be able to do that.
I would certainly be opposed to that if, in fact, this bill did that.
Thank you. Hold on just a second. Let me check the board to see if there are any more questions and check with our aide. I don't see any more questions. Whoops, I have one from Representative Manning.
Madam Chair, I was going to make a motion at the proper time.
Again, I see no more questions, so this is the proper time.
Madam Chair, I move that Senate Bill 578 do pass from this committee.
Second.
Thank you, Representative Manning, and I had a second. Is there any more discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Rice.
Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the committee.
I was trying to check our audience. Is Senator Pearson here? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you, Senator. We are now ready to take up Senate Bill 510.
Thank you, Madam Chairman and members of the committee. Many of you have seen this bill over the last 3 days that the subcommittee met, but for the benefit of those that have not, I'm going to briefly go through the bill and then be glad to take any questions or explain any of this. Let me first preface that by saying that we're only dealing with one buffer here, which is the 150-foot rule and reg, commonly referred to as the Section 5 criteria of the EPD Planning Act, that deals with what's called a small water supply watershed. What happens is when a municipality or county puts in a water intake, either in a reservoir or in a stream, then the department requires that they adopt this buffer for 7 miles upstream of that intake in an effort to protect the water quality that's going to be withdrawn, and that's certainly a common sense, practical approach to protecting that and the citizens. The problem lies with the exemption and variance procedure in that the counties under this rule and reg may exempt current use at the time the buffer's adopted, agriculture and forestry uses.
Senator, may I interrupt you for just a minute? The joke about cloning yourself has come true for me, and I just had a very persuasive argument that I need to attend another meeting immediately. I do not wish to stop the procedures of this meeting, and I don't see our vice chair, but I do see our treasurer here, Richard Smith. So, Richard, secretary, excuse me. Where's the money? That's where I'm going to go. No, Senator, I'm sorry for this, but I think this issue is too important. Legislative Counsel is here to my right to advise Acting Chair Richard Smith, and I'll talk to him about the Treasury later.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
I'm sorry for that.
Please continue.
All right, thank you, Mr. Interim Chairman. So anyhow, the problem has come up in the variance and exemption procedure here of what's allowed to be exempt, and I'm reading from the Section 5 criteria. Local governments may exempt land use prior to promulgation of the water supply. That's existing use exemption. They may exempt mining activities. They may exempt utilities, and they may exempt specific forestry and agricultural activities. What is not allowed in those exemptions currently is for any residences or any other type of development. Therein lies the problem in our district. Lumpkin County has become the poster child for this, but it is by no means the only county that is affected. Of the 7 counties that would come under this bill, of our 8 in our district, we have support from 5 of those in the form of mayors and or commission members. So in the case of Lumpkin, it's 5.7% of the land mass of the county is taken up in this buffer. Land prices up there right now are in excess of $20,000 an acre. Many of the parcels are small, and therefore most of the people, if they're doing agriculture, it's in a very limited fashion, but most of them are doing nothing. They've let these grow into pastures or buffers, and they simply want the ability to put a house in there. What it does not affect is any of the other statutory buffers. The 25-foot or 50-foot on the trout stream is not affected, nor is the river corridor buffer, and the 16 metro North Georgia Water Planning District counties are specifically not covered in that, and that exemption to this bill is on page 4, line 20. So if you're in one of those 16 counties, it doesn't affect you. What the bill does is 3 things. First of all, on page 2, there's an exemption at the bottom of the page on line 31 for a house on 2 acres or more, provided that the local zoning allows that density, and also provided that the field drain lines of the septic tank are outside that 150-foot buffer. We've been in consultation with the governor's office at length on this. He's in agreement with us that in cases, many of our counties, these parcels are so small that if they didn't have an outright exemption for a house in a situation like this, that this buffer would amount to a direct taking of their property through inverse condemnation. They would have no other practical use of that property if they couldn't do this. And many of these are in fact bought as lots for somebody to build a cabin or a house on. On line 12 of page 3, this allows for the department to come up with a variance procedure. Most notably on line 20, such rules and regulations shall provide the director should consider granting a variance under the following circumstances, and it lists those. One important part of this is that they have to prove that the use under this variance would maintain, and I'm on line 29 now, the completed project will result in maintained or improved water quality downstream of the project. So that's a very high hurdle to get over. and certainly we're concerned about protecting water quality downstream, so we think that's appropriate. Finally, on page 4, it allows for counties to adopt stormwater management ordinances, and that again is something that many of the counties have to do already, and as they grow, that's going to be something that many more will have to add to down the line. So in a nutshell, that's the bill, and I'll be glad to take any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thus far, I see no questions.
Mr. Chairman, my light obviously doesn't work. How about you press it? I'm 13. It must be an unlucky number or something. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the author, on page 3, where you talk about the landowner will have to provide a proof that the project will result in maintain or improve water quality. How can they prove that? What kind of proof source do you contemplate that they will be able to submit to the director for this?
Well, Representative Hughley, that would be up to the department to come up with this. It says on line 16, by December 31st, that they're going to come up with the rule and reg that would address just that, the question you had. What we contemplate that it would be somewhere between what currently exists in the erosion sedimentation control laws and MPDS laws, all the way up to, depending on the application and the variance requested, to something similar to what is already currently required in these North Georgia water planning counties that deals with runoff from impervious surfaces and yards and things like that. So it's really, the burden is upon the petitioner to provide evidence to the department that meets the criteria that they're going to set up, that this project, this variance being granted, would in fact result in maintain or improve water quality downstream.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator, question about, I'm on page 3 at the top of the page where it talks about septic tanks being able to be located within the buffer, and the drain fields would be outside of that area. I'm assuming first that there's a limited amount of flat ground on these properties, and hence the desire to build within the buffer. Shouldn't there be some concerns about having septic tanks within that buffer? And in terms of the drain fields, I'm assuming that if they're not in the buffer, that they're kind of going upslope away from the water source. And I've got a friend who's a plumber, and he said all you need to know is gravity. Everything flows downhill. Isn't that potentially disastrous for the drinking water reservoir that's downstream?
Well, that's a good question, Representative. I appreciate you asking it. There is no evidence that if the field lines were in the buffer that it would be detrimental to downstream water quality. With the installation requirements nowadays of septic tank and the health department's approval of that installation and the new infiltrators and things they have, 2/3 of the water is actually lost through evaporation in a modern septic tank, not through infiltration into the ground. So in light of that, though, we still said to be safe, because this is a buffer to protect the water quality downstream, let's put the burden on them that they have to have, it may not be perfectly flat, which is not required, but it would have to have health department approval, including the soil would have to perk, or they would have to pump it to a location on their property, or get an easement from someone else and get a place they could pump it that would allow it to be something that would be approved by the health department for that application. So again, we sort of kind of went above and beyond with the field lines, but the tank itself is sealed, and we really don't see that there's going to be an issue there. So the burden's upon the property owner, and at that point the discussion was, I think yesterday, what happens if they don't have adequate land for that? Well, that's really, at that point, it's their problem. We've simply allowed them, though, this exemption to build the house. Now, to meet all the other required environmental criteria, that's going to be the burden of the landowner there.
Thank you.
Representative Buckner.
Thank you. We've had an ongoing discussion about the septic tanks and the buffer, and I still have grave concerns. But I'm going to, in light of that, I'm going to just ask one question, that in the beginning of this whole process, we had a different bill that was talking about the landowner's concern about the value of their land if they couldn't use it and build on it. And the whole, and a lot of that's changed. But this bill now is a bill to allow variances. And so if this is a bill that allows variances, we had an amendment that was agreed to by you, and then you changed your mind, and by the subcommittee, and it changed its mind. But we had an amendment that took out that section about the septic tanks being in the buffer, and then the rest of it talks about the variance process. Why do you feel that that variance process that's on page 3 is not enough if we take out the section on the bottom of page 2 and the top of page 3 like we did before?
Well, Representative, when I was presented with those amendments, I spoke incorrectly as to my support because I was referring to the wrong page on that line, and I stated that yesterday. Again, specifically, we have all along said that we'd have to have an exemption for these small properties, or else it's a taking. It's clear and simple. If when 150, you got basically 440-foot square is 2 acres. If now you have taken 150 foot of that land and are forced to build on the side of the hill or not, depending on how it's set up, if you cannot build in that buffer, it's going to be a taking. And that's why Lumpkin County has refused to adopt this Section 5 ordinance, and many other counties in our district that have prior commissions adopted them, and the current commissions didn't even know it was in place, have now come up in support of this bill because they're getting hammered when people who've owned land for years try to go build on a 2 or 3 acre lot that they've owned, and now they're told you can't build on it. So the bill started out, original 510 was very simple. It said you can have any buffer you want, but anything bigger than 25 or 50 feet, somebody has to pay for it. Now, obviously, that brought in a lot of issues of who's going to pay for it, who's responsible, is the unfunded mandate. So through this whole process of this session, we have worked with ACCG and the cities and counties to get to a bill here that ACCG is supporting. GMA is neutral on the bill, but the governor supports this provision, and I've had 3 meetings with him and his folks over the last 2 weeks because he understands, like he said it to us, we can't take their land without paying them. And so that's why we left it in. Again, the septic tank provision was just trying to go above and beyond to show good faith and put that burden upon the landowner now and him meeting the health department criteria of the siting of that septic tank. But we just feel that if we don't have this provision here, our counties are not going to adopt it that need to adopt it. So without that buffer, again, it's for drinking water, you're stuck with that issue.
I'm not allowed to ask another question, but I'm still wondering why Section B doesn't help.
Hello, y'all. Sorry I had to leave. I was needed for a quorum at another meeting. Who's next in line? Okay. We'll come back around to you. Representative Benfield?
Oh, I waived my question. Representative Thomas asked the same question I was going to ask.
Thank you. Representative McCall?
Senator Pearson, it seems to be the biggest concern with some folks is this from line 31 on page 2 all the way through wherever it quits on page 3. And locals not having control. Line 36 on page 2 pretty much lets the locals do what they want to, doesn't it?
You're referring to line that says such a well must be in compliance with all other local zoning regulations?
Right.
Yes, sir. We can't grant them under this bill any greater density than what the county has if they have zoning.
And by the Constitution of the state of Georgia, we can't get in local zoning.
Zoning is
Either.
constitutionally protected.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Representative McCall. I see Representative Holmes.
Yes. Well, as sort of a follow-up to what Chairman McCall indicated, that the local communities don't currently have a zoning ordinance. And you know, these counties that you were talking about do have a zone. All of them do have zoning ordinances. I know some counties do and some don't.
Well, I can only speak directly to our district.
That's what I meant. Those
right.
6 counties or 7 counties.
And most of them do have it. I've actually have one county now that allows a 3/4 acre lot, and they have pulled their official support for the bill because they feel that we are down zoning their county in this when it would require 2 acre. And I've tried to explain to them you're still allowed the variance procedure. You can make that argument through there, but again, we had to come to some compromise on that exemption for that single family dwelling. And so we felt that 2+ acres with the field line out, provided the local zoning allowed it if it was in place, was reasonable for both sides. So I got some on one side of me on this issue and some on the other in my own district.
And on paragraph C, page 4, which refers to the lines in addition to complying, and on line 10, page 4, that the local governments may adopt stormwater management plan. And I remember when we discussed this the other day, you were concerned about the fact that it was a local government mandate. But in view of the fact that EPD, is going to develop a model stormwater management ordinance, you're saying that for the local government to be required to adopt a local stormwater management ordinance applicable to the streams that you're referring to, that would be an imposition, if not a mandate. And I guess I'm trying to understand why. And you said they said they're not going to do it. Commissioners. In other words, you already have this model ordinance, and in effect, you're asking them to sort of modify it or whatever to do that. Why is that considered to be something which the commissioners say they'll refuse to adopt?
Well, Representative, as the language currently reads in this substitute bill, it says the local government may adopt this.
Yes.
So it's totally voluntary at this point, and it said in addition to those standards. Previously, it said in lieu of. We had the debate on that. We're just asking now to support the bill that your committee introduced as a substitute and move this bill forward. But as it is now, this section is optional to them. It's still there as a carrot to them to move on to this, because very likely down the road, most of these growing counties will have to adopt some type of stormwater management.
Okay. No, I was just trying to ask the question, why you object to shall?
Thank you, Representative Holmes. Okay.
To answer why they refuse to adopt it.
You mean?
Representative Holmes, I have missed all the discussion, but we're trying to, in fairness to everyone else, give them a chance.
I understand.
Okay.
Would you like me to answer, Madam?
That's fine, Senator.
I'd be glad to. Because previously, when we spoke, I think it was at Thursday's meeting, on line 6 it said in lieu of complying. And you asked a question, sir, at that time, down here, that in lieu of complying that they may, and I said at that time we would be willing to change it to shall. Now the substitute that your committee's introduced says in addition to. So at that point, it's in addition to the minimum standards. Why would they do it except as an optional at that point? If you change that one word up there, then we were willing to change the one down there. Now this is an incentive, but it's not an unfunded mandate because they may, as it's currently written.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
I see that there are some who have questions, but they've already had the first round of questions. We're in the posture now that we could possibly go ahead and have a motion on the bill and then consider amendments. Or legislative council, what's the proper procedure for that?
If amendments are to be offered, they'll be offered now.
All right. If I could see the lights for anybody who has an amendment to offer, that would be helpful. Okay. Representative Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to offer an amendment, which, shall I read it? And then I'd like to amend LC 254534 ECS substitute to Senate Bill 510 by striking lines 5 and 6 of page 1 and inserting in lieu thereof the following: certain terms, semicolon, to provide for grant of variances from stream and water supply reservoir buffer. And on page 2, striking line 31 through line 11 of page 3 and inserting in lieu thereof the following: 2A reserved. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative. Could you repeat that again? Because I was one of the ones trying to make copies. Do you have copies for the members? Thank you. All right. Representative Martin, just to be sure, Representative Martin, the copy you handed me is one of your originals, so be sure and get it back. I'm going to show it to lead council. Representative Thomas. Okay. Is there a second on that? Second. I hear second. All right. At this point in time, there can be questions on this amendment. Would you like to explain further, Representative Thomas?
Yes, Madam Chair. This amendment would remove the language in the bill that deals with septic tanks and their locations. Seems to me that what we really are trying to achieve here is a variance procedure for property owners so that they can build on their property. And so this will remove the discussion of septic tanks, allowing those to be built within a buffer zone.
All right. Are there any questions specific to that amendment? Representative Martin.
Madam Chair, I don't have a copy of the amendment, but am I correct in saying the gentleman wishes to strike on page 2, line 31 through the end of the page and through line 11 on the next page? Am I correct in understanding? Is that correct on the amendment? Okay.
The reason we have this confusion here, usually when you get this type of amendment, it's helpful to have it printed, but I notice it's the original. So, again, I will read what this amendment says. It says, amend the LC 254534 ECS substitute to Senate Bill 510 by striking lines 5 and 6 of page 1 and inserting in lieu thereof the following: certain terms, semicolon, to provide for grant of variances from stream and water supply reservoir buffer. Then the second part of this amendment is by striking line 31 of page 2 through line 11 of page 3 and inserting in lieu thereof the following: parentheses 2, parentheses A, reserved.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And if I may, that's the, if we're in discussion, I'd like to
Yes, we are.
recognize that first. I just want to be clear that I had the gentleman's amendment correct, and I would offer to the committee, for the purpose of discussion, that we're doing a lot more there than removing septic tanks. We're, in fact, taking the folks' ability to use their property away. And further point out that on line 1, 2, and 3 of the bill, as it is currently drafted in the substitute, it is very clear that drain fill lines have to be outside the area, and it's up to the property owner. If he has a in my opinion, and that of others, I believe that if there is just a 2-acre tract alongside a creek where that drain field could not be constructed, the folks involved would not be able to build a house. I just want the committee to understand that the gentleman's amendment would, in fact, in my opinion, result in the taking of those 2-acre parcels, which the author of the bill, which is the intent, one of the main intents of the bill. So it's just, we're taking away their ability to build a house, not just to deal with the septic tank lines, which are already dealt with. Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Martin. I see 3 more questions. I'm assuming these questions are to this amendment. If they are not, if you'll just cancel your button there so I'll know how to recognize you. All right, Representative Buckner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have 3 points I want to make. One is this is the exact same wording of an amendment that we accepted 2 meetings ago, which was AM 250909, to address the issue of the drain fill lines and the question about taking away the value of the land. It does not, in my opinion, do that because on page 3, lines 17 and 18, we are specifically giving the director an opportunity to develop rules and regs so that she can honor requests for variances. We are just taking this specific information that fits Lumpkin County out and making it a statewide application for the EPD director to do variances wherever they occur in the state. That wasn't a question, but...
Thank you, Representative Buckner. All right, I see 3 more questions. Representative Benfield next.
Comment that we had passed this in our subcommittee, but that vote was later redone.
Thank you,
It passed unanimously.
Thank you, Representative Benfield. And then I see Representative Hughley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was not on this original subcommittee. I just need to have some clarification. On a 2-acre lot, would the septic tank have to be within the buffer? Or would there not be enough room on the other part of the property to put the septic tank?
Representative Hughley, I'm going to have you address that to the presenter of the bill.
Well, you're correct, ma'am. The septic tank could be outside of the buffer. In fact, the majority or all of the structure could be outside the buffer. The important part to remember is that all these lots aren't set up so that you can have a building envelope that is, going to accept this 150-foot buffer, because most of these lots were present before the buffer was put in place. So you're correct. In many cases, the structure and or the septic tank and drain fields all could be outside the buffer. But remember what is allowed already in this code section, that the county may exempt mining, agriculture, forestry, utilities, and current uses. So all those may be exempted already at the county level without a variance from the department. We're just saying that we want the exemption also for the single-family house in these lines that's been referenced in this amendment, provided that we take the extra step and ensure that at least the field lines, if not the whole tank, and maybe all or part of the structure, is outside that buffer.
Thank you, Representative Hughley. I have Representative Cowan.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I just wanted to make the statement that this is the exact amendment that was presented in subcommittee yesterday and was soundly defeated. So I would just encourage the members to defeat this amendment again today.
Would you repeat your last line, please?
I just encourage the members to defeat this amendment.
To defeat. Thank you, sir. Next, I see Representative McCall.
We've talked about this amendment for about 20 minutes. I'm ready to vote on it. Please, ma'am.
Are you calling? All right. I need someone to call the question on
I'm doing it then.
Okay, you're calling the question. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. The first thing we vote on is shall the question be now put? All those in favor of calling the question, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Now we're in the posture of voting on the amendment. For the purpose of our committee to fully understand what the amendment does, I'm going to read it one more time, wherever it is. Amendment 250917, amend the LC 254534 ECS substitute to Senate Bill 510 by striking lines 5 and 6 of page 1 and inserting in lieu thereof the following certain terms to provide for grant of variances from stream and water supply reservoir buffer. Also by striking line 31 of page 2 through line 11 of page 3 and inserting in lieu thereof the following, parentheses 2, parentheses A, reserved. All right, all those in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, I can't talk, please signify by a like sign.
No.
All right, the chair has a question, so let's do a hand vote on this, please. All those in favor of this motion, and I need committee aide and the secretary to count the votes, please signify by raising your hand. 7 are in favor of the motion. All those opposed, please also raise your hand. That number was 12, so this motion is defeated. Are there any other motions? I'll entertain a motion on the full bill. Representative Manning has moved. Is there a second? All right. Any questions? All those in favor of the passage of Senate Bill 510, which is LC 254534 ECS, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Nay. In abundance of caution, I'm going to ask for a hand vote on this bill. All those in favor of Senate Bill 10, please raise your hand. 510. Sorry. The number was 12. All opposed, please raise your hand. 7. Senator, congratulations, your bill is passed. And to this committee, I want to thank all of you, everyone, for your due diligence on this bill. Representative Buckner has pushed her button. She has a question.
I just want to serve notice that we'll be filing a minority report.
Thank you, Representative Buckner.
Thank you, Madam Chairman and members of the committee, for your indulgence in this.
Thank you, Senator. I have a couple of housekeeping issues for our committee. We're getting towards the end of the session. Please check your emails, check the bulletin board, and help keep yourselves informed as to the activities before this committee. Thank you again for your attendance, and I got another question. Okay. Representative McCall has an announcement.
To all of y'all that wasn't in the Ag Committee this morning, be sure to go to Depot from about now till 2 o'clock for Ag Awareness Day. You'll learn a lot, and you'll eat a lot.
Thank you. We stand adjourned.